Welcome guys to another episode of Today with Ray. I'm your host Rhema T, and this show is all about highlighting everyday entrepreneurs. So if you are not a part of the journey, make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you can learn and support local businesses here and around Wilmington, North Carolina. So like I mentioned, we have Stefanie here on the show with WNY People Development. I'm so excited for this episode. So Stefanie, tell us a little bit about yourself and your business and how you got into entrepreneurship.
Sure. So my company is actually WNY People Development, and WNY does stand for Why Not You. In my history, I've sort of always been that person that did things that they were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did XYZ. Sometimes it's I moved across the country without knowing anyone, tried out for a professional dance team, for a sports team. I've always done things that were outside of my comfort zone. Becoming an entrepreneur was one of those. So what my business, WNY People Development, is leadership training and coaching for businesses. Any industry, any level of leadership, but really our niche market is frontline first-time managers, Gen Z, millennial workforce. And you know, the workforce is changing and expectations are changing. And we come in and we help work with your employees and really help to create collaborative spaces and high-impact work environments.
Wow, that sounds so interesting, and I know I think COVID really hit a shift for how the work environment is today, and a lot of millennials or Gen Z is realizing like work-life balance or like really being appreciated in the workspace. What's your take on that?
So I come from the world of nonprofit and education.
I
shifted to the corporate sector in 2016. So I've seen both sides of the coin, and it's been interesting just to experience working in an educational space where it's about developing others, and it's so much focused on the customer, aka your student. When I got into the corporate sector, I recognized that there was a little bit of a shift, that it wasn't so people focused anymore, and it really became about profits in some of the companies that I worked with. And so what for me, I think COVID was a really great thing, and people are like, don't say that, it's awful. But in the grand scheme of things, I think what it did for work, it helped corporations go, how my people feel matters. What they want matters. They want to be developed, they want to grow, and we need to invest in that. And I think that was something that the nonprofit and educational space has always done a really great job of recognizing what people need and addressing what people need. And now we're finally going there with the workforce. And so, there were some companies that were ahead of it, and they've been talking about, positive psychology and mental health and wellness in the workplace. We've seen it starting to generate, but COVID did it. I mean, we just did a event last week for Gen Z and workforce leaders, and the idea was to figure out, okay, what does Gen Z want? Because I really got tired of going into clients and they were saying, well, what's wrong with my Gen Z people? They don't get what we're doing. Why aren't they working like we're working? And so really, it's not that they're not working the way you work, they just work differently. They have different motivators. They've got different things that they're working towards, but it doesn't mean they're doing things wrong. So the idea was, let's learn to understand each other, figure out where we're coming from, and how do we leverage the different strengths that we bring to the table. But you said work-life balance, and one of the questions we talked about was, what does that mean to you? And so to the Gen Z participants, they talked a lot about, like, when I leave work, I want to leave work. I don't want to take it home and be thinking about it. My husband's an older millennial, and when I look at, he works 24 hours a day. You know what I mean? And I can see that, and it's hard for him to sort of shut it down. And I think that's pretty common with older millennials, Gen X, boomers, because that's the culture that we were raised in. And so now I think that it's really good that we're having these conversations around, when does work stop? What does work look like? What do I want to get out of it?
That's such an interesting take, and I can even see it now, the shift. My husband's the same way, where like, if he gets a phone call and it's like after 5, I'm like, don't answer it. He's like, I have to. And I'm just like, why do you have to? What in your mind is making you feel like the job is still going to be there? It's not calling you to tell you that you're fired or anything. It's just, but I'm the opposite. You call me, it's going straight to voicemail. Because it has to remain, one or the other. I try not to blend the two when I don't have to. Sometimes there's things that come up where you're just like, I gotta take this. But otherwise, so I think it's such an interesting take that, this next wave of the working class or whatnot is like, hey, we're gonna set this boundary and kind of keep it.
And it's not just about the boundaries, like they very much were focused on like the wellness piece of things, mental health and work, but the other component of that is the side hustle. So many of them have a side hustle because there's so many different opportunities that you can do. You can have your day job and you can come in and kill it between this hour to this hour. And really what we're starting to see across the board, and corporations are starting to support this, like let's say if you've got a pretty large social media presence and you have your own branding along that way, and that encourages you to make money in a different way. There are large Fortune 500 companies that are allowing their employees to use work time to do that because it supports them as well, right? So it's just really interesting to watch these shifts. And as a training and development person, I got to stay on top of it. I have to keep watching the trends. I have to keep listening. I have to keep reading, doing research, because it's constantly changing. But I think that what we're not going to lose is the people-focused piece of work. That matters. It's the most important component. And I think that if we don't start doing work differently, employers are going to have a really hard time finding people to fill the positions that they need.
And I think one of the trends that we're starting to see is that as soon as someone doesn't feel valued or appreciated the way that they do, they're not willing to stay in that environment. They're like, this isn't for me. I know my worth. What do you think about that? Do you think that there's two opposite ends of that? Like, what's the phrase for it? Quiet quitting?
Quiet quitting, Yes. I think that COVID had a lot to do with that. I think that all of us, when we sat home and we really couldn't do much besides looking at our TV and computer screens and our dogs, I think that we all reevaluated. What do we really want out of life? I mean, I launched this business 2 weeks before COVID shut down. I mean, I had spent 6 months prepping to launch. I did my branding, built my content. I was fired up. I was ready. I took the leap on February 29th, leap day, 2020. So taking the leap on February 29th, 2020 didn't exactly work out great for me. However, what it did do, my initial business plan that I had set out for myself that I was, going to stick to, completely shifted because of COVID. It forced me to be more agile. It forced me to do online learning, which was not something that was originally part of my plan. It pushed me out of my comfort zone. So I think that there's a part of us that went, okay, what did I like about COVID? What did I not like about being stuck at home? What did I like about my job during that time? What were the parts of it that I was like, wow, this is not great and I deserve better? So I think it's been a really good thing in some ways, and that reevaluation is forcing so much shifting in how and why we work. And I think that if we can come back to the why do we do what we do, and if you can help talk through that with your team and you can support their why, you're going to be more successful.
I totally get that. And I was talking to another guest that was on the show about how much you have to pivot, not only as an entrepreneur, but as you're seeing in the workforce. So how is that for you? You mentioned it, having to keep up with trend and the market. So how is that for you on the entrepreneurial side, having to pivot with so many things and so many culture shifts in the workplace?
So I'll start with the positives.
Okay.
It's been a ton of fun. I love, because I work with a lot of different industries. I work with hotel restaurants. I work with real estate or realtors. I've worked with people in the trade sector. I've worked in pharma, other healthcare sectors, you name it. And my job is constantly changing. And that's me. I hate monotony. I love to do different things. I like to meet new people. So I've really worked across a lot of different industries. So for me, it's been a blast learning the business that I'm working with, what are their needs, and there are some certain things that I'm seeing across the board, but regardless of the things that ties together, which again is that people component and how are we growing our leaders, our next generation of leaders, how are we supporting our people, there's little nuances for each industry. And so talking to the leadership, talking to the individual contributors, learning what they are missing at work and how can I develop content and strategies and activities to support that and broaden those asks into a way that they get what they need out of the session. That's been fun. I'm constantly in my Amazon cart. I don't do Audible. I can't listen to books. I have to read books. I need to write books, highlight books.
That's me.
There is a constant stream of books coming to my house about different leadership principles, things that have worked. I don't believe that there is a one-size-fits-all leadership strategy. I think that, because we're people and we are different and we bring different strengths and weaknesses to the table, it's about knowing your people. And so I try and gather as much information and research as possible. So that's been the fun part about the job. And because of that, there's some companies that I work with in long-term contract opportunities. So we'll partner for 6 months and we build as we need to. There are some people that have brought me in for keynote opportunities, and I'll come and speak for an hour, to get a crowd hyped up. Then there's one-off team building sessions where I'll come and spend a couple hours with, a specific group of employees. Where the negative has been in that adaptability, because I've been sort of everything to everybody, because we were trying to survive COVID, survive the start of a new business, I did a little bit of everything. Strategy went out the window. And so this year, we just celebrated our 3rd anniversary, which was so exciting. But finally, going into year 4, I sat down and did a solid strategic plan. Up until now, it was, hey, build the brand, build awareness. Who am I? And I really have a hold on what do I want to do? Where am I trying to go with this? And that feels incredible as a business owner, but it took a while to get there. And so I would say that I've been very adaptable, almost to my own detriment. Because I lost sort of my focus and vision about the direction I was trying to go. So,
and that's interesting, that in the shift is kind of like, how do you remain focused on what it is that you set out to do without conforming too much of this way and that way? One of the things that you did mention is being people focused. And I know you guys were like, why the heck do we have pom-poms at the beginning of this episode? So I want you to tell us how, or what's the story behind the pom-poms?
Absolutely. So the pom-poms are actually the next generation of WNY People Development. Truly, the pom-poms are the future of WNY People Development. So I am a 15-year cheerleader and a 5-year cheerleading coach. I did 1 year of high school cheerleading coaching and 4 years of college coaching. It is at the core of who I am. I started, my first sport I ever played, I was 8. My parents put me into soccer, and that year I got the certificate for best cartwheels on the field. So, cheerleaders are made, they're born that way. I truly believe I am one of those. And so cheerleading is just really who I am. It's how I approach the world. I love developing people. I love cheering other people on. It is my natural, authentic self. So, when I launched WNY People Development, I had this idea because, especially when I coached college, I learned a lot about leadership. I had, 17 to 21-year-old, mostly young women. That is a tough group when you've got 20 of them. And cheerleaders physically build on each other. And so you have to trust each other. You have to, I don't care if you don't like each other, but you have to respect each other. We need to drop the drama at the door. Keeping people focused on a single goal, it was not an easy task. And man, I learned a lot from coaching and as well as cheerleading and the importance of team and what those lessons are. What I started recognizing I was doing in my professional life, I was utilizing what I had learned and what I knew from coaching cheerleading and using it as an individual contributor, as a member of a team, and then eventually as I became a leader myself, I was using those strategies. So, long story short, when I initially launched WNY People Development in early 2020, my first idea I wanted to do was I wanted to have content built around cheerleadership. That's going to be the working title for right now. And essentially what it was is cheer strategies that support positive workplace culture and collaborative dynamic teams. When I started, my husband said to me, I don't know if people are going to take you seriously if you come out doing this. I understand where he was coming from. And so at the time, I put it to the side and I focused more on research-based leadership initiatives, building content around things people were asking for, like conflict resolution, team building, emerging leaders, peer to manager transition. And I really focused on that. But now that I'm at this space that I've become established, I started bringing pom-poms here and there. And I launched cheerleadership about a year ago as a keynote. Now I'm finding everywhere I go, people say, where are your pom-poms?
Yeah.
That's the first question I get. So I'm leaning into it. I am writing a book called, working title, Cheerleadership. And there are 5 concepts that I am creating that pull from cheerleading that will help corporate, nonprofit, individual teams work better together and do it in a way that makes the workplace a place we want to be, a place that sees us for who we are, represents for who we are, creates a sense of belonging, creates a place where we feel that we can achieve and accomplish anything based on the strengths that we have and working together and leveraging those with those other members of our team.
Wow.
So, this is the next generation. And you know what? It's felt so good to lean into it because 100%, like I've done this forever. I've always had a pair of pom-poms in my office. Like when I worked in HR, I was a learning and development professional. I ran the training team for my most recent corporate role. And I always had pom-poms in my desk. And if somebody was having a crappy day, they'd come in and they'd be telling me, oh, this person did this, or I missed the deadline on this. And I would just be like, here, and I'd hand them the pom-poms. They'd kind of look at me like I was like crazy. What are you doing? I'm like, just shake them.
Yeah.
Why? Just trust me, shake them. So they'd start, and it would always kind of start off with, and all of a sudden they're smiling, they're feeling good, and they're like, wow, this really works. It does, because there's a couple things at play here. Shaking a pom-pom is just fun. It vibes you up. The sound does it.
It is.
The movement helps release endorphins. So there's actual science behind it. So just getting up, like if you're having a bad day at the office, sometimes you just need to take a breath, get up, stretch, walk, find a pom-pom and shake it. That movement is going to release happy hormones, which is going to help you be able to reset and start over or start again, whatever it is that you got stuck on before you left.
I am truly amazed. I am. And I can attest to that. In October during MED week, which is Minority Enterprise Development Week here in Wilmington, North Carolina, you were passing them out, and I tell you what, I took my pom-pom and I was shaking it every day, like, what am I doing right now? Or I just need a, and then my kids took it and they've had such fun shaking the pom-pom.
I gave you a new one, Ted.
Yes,
too.
yes. Yeah. Speaking on that side note, Stefanie brought me a gift, so to all my future guests, you have to step your game up because that now just sets the bar super high.
Can I make a note on that for entrepreneurs about the swag?
Yes.
Don't be cheap with your swag. I get a lot of compliments. I give pens out for every training session that I do. If I've got 300 people in the room or if I've got 6 people in the room. My pens, they are not, you know, like a cheapy, all plastic, whatever. They are nice pens. They draw beautifully. And I get compliments from people. They're like, I took a class with you a year ago and I'm still using your pen. I love it. And it's crazy, like how that conversation, like you set the standard of what you're trying to present to the world. True. And that comes with your swag. Yeah. And so, you know, if you're gonna try and nickel and dime yourself because you're saving money, and I get it on the front end, it's hard to like put money out, especially when you're getting started. That was one of the things I invested in, was making sure that my swag was in line with the type of culture that I was trying to promote and create, and I wanted people to know that this was a high quality product that they were investing in, and so I was investing in them with my giveaways and things like that too. So I think that's just really important as an entrepreneur to consider. You know, what story are you telling people when you're giving them something with your company's name on it?
That's deep. And it also goes to the spirit of your business being so people-driven and people-centric that you have to think outside of yourself in every aspect of your business. And yeah, it seems, you know, minuscule, but it's like, it's just a pen, but it's like, no, because that pen represents that I was thinking about you when I was thinking about my business.
Yeah. Everything that I do that has my logo on it is important to me what message am I sending? And you just never know, even with the post that we put out on social media. I put a post out on LinkedIn over the weekend. I had a moment, and my son overheard a frustrated conversation, and he came to me and he told me he believed in me and my company. And it was a moment. And I wrote it down on LinkedIn just because I was moved by the whole situation. And sometimes you hit those walls as an entrepreneur that I don't know if I can bust through this right now, or I'm just blocked. And I was so moved by that moment, just needed to write it, put it out. I've had so much response to that, and it's because it's my company, but it's me. And again, going back to the people piece, every employee that works for you, anyone that you hire, anyone that's sitting in a room that you're addressing, there's a story behind that person. There's so much more than the role. We asked a question last week in the Gen Z leader lock-in, and we asked it to the Gen Zers as well as the workforce leaders. And the question was, my job is my identity. And we were doing a agree or disagree rapid fire session. And it was interesting how Gen Z, there were 14 young people up there. No one said yes to that. It's not my identity. My job is my job. It's how I make money. It's how I afford the things that I want, but it's not who I am. But the workforce leaders, a few of them, there was a couple, it is my identity, So, but we need to remember that people are so much more than just the job, the company that I own. I'm also a mother. I'm a former elected official, and someone once said to me when I sat on the dais of the school board that you're a character. People don't see you as the parent. They don't see you as the business owner. They don't see you as a community member. So I think it's really important as an entrepreneur to let people see into that side. Yes, you are running a business, but who are you outside of that? And all the research is telling us too that the small business owners that do give you that window into who you are and what's behind the story and how did you get over the challenges, that's what's going to say, I want to work with that person.
Right. So. And I think that's so big, especially in social media now. You can start to see the people that gravitate, especially with entrepreneurs. They want to see that authenticity. They want to see the person behind the brand, essentially. And that's how they feel like they're connected with them on a deeper level. And that was really the basis behind even starting this show, is that, entrepreneurs, they're not these robotic characters, like you said, that just go into this and it's just no, let's pause a second. These people risked everything. They put their savings, their time, their blood, their sweat, their tears, everything. And I was like, I have to stop and take a moment and really highlight, your journey, because it's so much deeper and so much more than just I'm a 3-year entrepreneur. No, there was struggles, there was obstacles that happened, and I'm just really grateful that, again, I get to do things like this and highlight the story, because you're so right that you're a mom, you're a wife, a business owner is only one part of everything. So speaking on social media, where can they find the authentic Stefanie?
So we are on Instagram at WNY People Development. We are on LinkedIn at WNY People Development. We are also on Facebook at WNY People Development. So across the board, and just our website is www.wnypeopledevelopment.com. We are available for keynote presentations around cheerleadership, confidence, women in leadership. We provide training, a la carte training, as well as service contract training. And we love working with all industries. I mean, we really, it's a blast, because I love to learn every time that I go out. And I will say this, my training style is like a 30-70 model. 30% is me sharing best practices, facilitating activities. 70% of the work is being done by the people in the training class. It's fun, there's music, there's movement, everything's interactive. I don't want someone talking at me for an hour.
Right.
That doesn't work with me, and it doesn't work with most adult learners.
That's true.
So we have a blast, and fun fact, adults actually retain more when they are laughing and when they are enjoying themselves. So we do a lot of that when
Yeah.
it comes to our training sessions.
And I'm sure they can expect to shake some pom-poms.
Depending on the content area, it is
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah. So I have two more questions for you. The first one being, how can the community help Stefanie?
Okay, that's a really great question. Well, first off, I would like to say we have a give back program. So coming from the nonprofit sector, I am very well aware that nonprofit organizations, a lot of times they invest so much of themselves and their resources into the people or the causes that they support, they don't get to invest in their own leadership development.
Yeah.
So for every for-profit piece of business, WNY People Development withholds 10% to provide free training for nonprofits in
Beautiful.
Southeastern North Carolina.
Beautiful.
So that's number one.
Yeah.
That nonprofit bank is full right now, and I keep putting it out there from time to time. We've worked with the Boys and Girls Club. We have done things with Feast Down East. We have done some things with the YWCA. But that money is there. So if you are a nonprofit organization, please feel free, reach out. You're eligible for a 2-hour nonprofit training that would be specific to your needs. So that's the first thing. If you know anyone within the nonprofit community that's looking for just some training and development, free of charge, send them my way.
Okay.
But otherwise, I would just say any type of referral. Our prime client tends to be small to mid-sized companies, 100 to 200 employees, and they typically have a very small HR department. So 1 or 2 people. They do not have the bandwidth to do a training needs assessment, develop content, and then facilitate it to the teams. So any type of just referrals. We have done very limited marketing as a company since we started because most of our business has come from referrals and the experiences that other clients have had. And that's allowed us to expand throughout North Carolina. We have had a recent national client, which was super exciting. So it's the referral base is so important, and I'm definitely always looking for, hey, let's have a conversation. What do you need? Let me see if I can help support it. And if I can't, I'm going to direct them to somebody that can.
Awesome. And then the last question is, what advice would you give someone that wants to become an entrepreneur?
Don't give up on yourself. It's so easy. You have those days where you're like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
I can say, year 1, we came out in the black by $600, just barely. But in COVID, that was pretty impressive. Year 2, we increased a little tiny bit. Between 21 and 22, we had 600% growth.
Wow.
Now, this year, because I think the economy has fallen back a little bit, I think that companies are a little less focused on investment, outside investment right now. There are days that I look at the books and I'm like, oh boy, I don't know. Should I look for a job? Should I figure this out? Should I quit? Did I make the right decision? And going back to that conversation where my son heard me talking about these things, and he said, I believe in you, and I believe in your company. And I went, you know what? I have to believe in me too.
Yeah.
And so on the days where you feel like you want to quit, on the days where things are not working, be willing to shift and try things in a different way, but just don't give up on yourself, because you can do it. And that next door is going to open when you least expect it. And that's kind of what happens with my business. I'll have these like slow times, and then it's like the door opens and it's a deluge, and I don't have enough dates to give people. So you just keep pushing, keep innovating, be willing to flex, but at the heart of it, don't give up.
Amazing. And that was free. The next time, she's going to charge for coaching.
There it is.
There it is. I really want to thank you for coming on the show. This interview has been amazing. I feel very happy after shaking the
I feel like we should shake them again.
I feel like we should.
Here we go. Why
There we
not
go. Make sure that you guys are on the lookout for Stefanie's book coming soon, right?
Well, yes, we hope so. Hopefully, probably in 2024, we're looking for a publishing date.
We're crossing fingers and shaking pom-poms
Yes.
and putting good vibes out in the universe. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure you go out and support a local business. I'm Rhema T. Bye.